Am I the right way? Here, let's put it this way.
There
Good
you are.
morning, everyone. Welcome to Hypnotica with Chantel and Melissa. Today, our topic is the magic is in the mess. And it just reminds me of this week I did a human design reading for my friend. And what came up in this reading was this idea of having like the structure of a seed or even the structure of a riverbank to keep the river in, but basically to like put out a structure, and then what gets filled in it is just like the magic, the co-creation with the universe. And so the magic in the mess is like the idea of, putting out an intention. Okay, so like this is our topic of conversation, and then whatever comes of it is like the magic, right? Like it's these are our parameters and we'll work within it. And the beauty of this, the lesson for me is boundaries. I feel like when we can put like a bit of a boundary or a bit of a like making a request of our partner, or saying or drawing a line and saying no, like we're going to go to this line but no further than this line, like it's like, okay, now they have something to work with, now we can co-create together, and it's such a beautiful thing. So, what are your ideas about the magic in the mess?
The the container that we create with people, or the containers that we create within ourselves, like the boundaries of something, to me creates the structure and the safety, so that when and if things do get messy, there is a container that will hold the space for that mess. So the mess isn't like leaking out everywhere. And inside of that too, there's safety to evaluate how messy we want to be. It's like without that structure and without those boundaries, things can get and feel very triggered, very explosive, very unsafe. So I feel like this other question that's coming to mind too is what what makes you feel messy? Like, how does that show up for you? And then looking at how you want to not only just deal with that on your own, but if it's showing up in your relationships, what makes you feel safe to sort of express like the messier side of you? Like for me, it's showing anger and showing sadness makes me feel really messy. And a lot of times anger is linked to being triggered. So with certain people, or people I've been with in the past, there have been times where I'm like, I will absolutely not show them any of that. I will yell to my friends. I will get it all out of my face, out of my body to my friends, and then come to the person completely regulated. I don't think that's good or bad or right or wrong, but it's just what my nervous system needs for safety. And then there are other people where I can say, sometimes loudly, that I'm feeling triggered and this is what's going on. And I'm afraid this is going to happen. And this is where my mind is going. And I try to keep it with me and not say, you did this and you made me feel that way. I try not to do those things, but let some of the mess out. But again, that only happens when I feel safe. And then the safety is created because of the structure of whatever container I'm in. It's good
Yeah,
times.
exactly. So, like, I think that's why a lot of people want to define their relationship, and sometimes early on into the relationship, like, like the youngsters now are doing like the ship, right? Like it's a situation ship. Like we're not
Mm-hmm.
defined, like, but like it just feels to me that feels unsafe. It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
are we a thing or are we not a thing? Like, are you going to be there for me in the hard times? Are you going to like run away from conflict? Like what? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
where are the lines, right? Like it's almost like a kid on the playground at school. Like they want to know where the boundary is so that they can play right up to the line, and then
Yes.
they feel safer that way. People who have no
Absolutely.
line, they play it safe and they stay like right in the center. Like they're just like they're too afraid to like explore things or
Mm-hmm.
be playful. So the things that came up when you were talking, I was watching Brene Brown's special, like her TV series. It was called Atlas of the Heart, and she was diving into all of the emotions, and it was just beautiful how she like labeled the emotions. And oh, there's a lot to say there. But the reason that Brene Brown came to mind when you were talking was she said that not everyone is deserving to hear our story, and to
Mm-hmm.
like, we only can get vulnerable with those people who are safe to do so. And Amanda Flaker was also talking about people who have, well, she calls it fault lines, but basically it's like triggers close to your triggers. So like we all know these people in our lives where like they're so sensitive or we're so sensitive, like just saying just something a little bit off can be just totally misconstrued, especially like in a text. Like if you're not
Mm-hmm.
there to like say I was joking right away, or like just be like I didn't mean it like that. Like people who take things the wrong way, it's often people aren't, they don't feel safe around those kind of people. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and it's not, it doesn't make people like bad or wrong. It's just certain personalities when they get together and talk, they can just trigger each other easily. And
Mm-hmm.
so like there's that safety factor there too. um yeah, we were talking about self-love right before we started recording
Mm-hmm.
and about the Lizzo concert and how like it was just amazing that how much she loves herself, and like I want to be like that too. And also like being human. As a therapist, as a projector, it's like we know all the sort of right therapy things, right? And how like don't blame your partner, etc., etc. But when it comes down to it, we are still we're still human. We still have those emotions. And
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes like as kids, the sadness and the anger was like to be disowned, like that was punished, so we don't do that. But it's still there. And like
Mm-hmm.
just allowing myself to be human with my partner is shaping up to be quite a challenging thing for me, to be honest. But I feel like I've been attracting more and more a partner who I do feel safe with. Like I don't feel
Mm-hmm.
like they're gonna run off if I'm human. Like if I get
Mm-hmm.
angry or if I get sad, that it's okay to do that. And like, I don't know, people like it. People like humanness. They
Mm-hmm.
like relatable things. They don't want to be in a relationship or look up to someone who is just like perfect in all the ways, because like that's not even real. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
just like I want to be in a relationship or follow or like idolize someone who just wears a ton of masks all the time and isn't
Mm-hmm.
themselves. Like there's something to be said about that too.
Yes, absolutely. It makes me wonder when I meet people like that, it makes me wonder who I'm actually connecting with. Am I connect like I'm just connecting with a mask, and that feels deeply unsatisfying to me and unsafe. So I'm like, who are
Mhm.
you?
Mhm. Yeah, on the Brene Brown special yesterday that I was watching, she brought up somebody, and they were doing like a bit of a role play scenario thing. And it was basically the younger lady was sharing that she had this problem at work where she shared with her boss like some constructive criticism and it wasn't taken well. And so then she was coming to Brene for like comfort or something, right? And so Brene was showing all of the ways that we respond to other people's upsetness, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
and just all the wrong ways to do it, right? Like being like, oh yeah, I once had a situation like that, and blah blah blah, turning it on, like not the way to do it. Or like just basically not being able to sit with their pain.
Mm-hmm.
And how the more healthy way to do it, how I'm learning to do things more, is to be just like asking what they need in that moment. And I learned
Mm-hmm.
this from a partner too. It's like, do you need my shoulder right now? Do you need my heart right now? Do you need my brain right now to problem solve? Like, what do you need right now? And it's
Mm-hmm.
more like just being able to be comfortable to sit with their pain versus trying to fix it or trying to minimize it or whatever our our protective parts want to do. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I do have the habit of going in when someone's sharing something with me and then I share a similar story, and it's not to remove the spotlight from them, but I'm like, oh, I relate and this is how I relate. But I'm trying to pump the brakes on that and literally ask the questions. Yeah, do you need to vent? Do you need support? Do you need solutions? Like,
Hmm.
how can I support you in this moment? Because sometimes people don't need, if they're really triggered and they're really in the feelings, they need to just be heard most of the time. They're not ready for solutions when I, like all of us are like in the feelings, like, no, I just need to express this.
Yeah,
And it's
like
like,
they're looking for connection, for
mm-hmm,
understanding
yeah.
first. Yeah. No, I definitely have the same like first response. And she was talking too about, like Renee was talking about parenting, and like I parented all wrong because whenever my kids were upset, I would always just go in and try to make it better, happy, happy,
Mm-hmm.
happy, like,
Yep.
like the bypassing of all the negative emotions, because I thought that's what my job was, to make them happy.
Mm-hmm.
And Renee was talking about too, like when her kids were, teenagers and upset, and they'd be in their room with their lights off, she would go in there and turn the lights on and be like, "Hey, we're gonna go on holiday," and just trying to like cheer them up.
Mm-hmm.
When as she did more and more studying on emotions, she would go into their room, if they let her in, and keep the light off and like sit with them in the darkness and just like be there with them in their pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought that was so beautiful. Like, I love how people like of her caliber, like I think of Brene Brown as like Oprah and Ellen, like, like my
Yeah.
heroes, right? How they can be vulnerable like that and be like, hey, I'm not perfect either. I'm learning right
Mm-hmm.
alongside you about these emotions and labeling them and how to deal with them. And like the most interesting thing of her whole special was about um, when you have an emotion and you label it as something, it kind of like does create a bit of a framework or a structure, and like helps you deal with it in a certain way because you know what it is, versus feeling out of control when you're feeling all your in your feelings but you don't know what it
Mm-hmm.
is. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. It can be really disorienting and overwhelming when we're being taken over by our emotions, which can also spark at least for me, the feeling of messiness or feeling like I don't have it together and I need to get it together. But I'm like, I'm not ready to get it together because I'm angry. So it's just having to navigate all of that. Also, this is just popping up. I I really love doing IFS work, so internal family systems work,
Too, it's
and
best.
it's the best. And talking about like my little kid parts, which I call squirrels, like my brain squirrels are anxious or they're feeling a certain way. I was talking with a friend of mine who is also a fellow projector. We love her. I was saying something about needing to take care of my squirrels. I need to protect my squirrels. And she said, yeah, this is about your squirrels, but also this is about you protecting you. And oh my God, that got me so hard, so good. But like, even as I'm saying that, I can feel this heaviness on my chest and feeling like, oh my gosh, yeah, my little kid parts were not protected the way they needed to be. Me as the adult trying to do that, but also me as the adult, I also need to show up for my adult. And like, how does that look? And it just like threw me for the biggest loop. So I'm currently sitting in this giant mess of A, how do I navigate the situation that I originally told her about? And then B, how am I navigating protecting not only my squirrels, my little kid parts, but my adult self? No one teaches us this. Like, none at all. I have
Hmm.
no idea.
Yeah, and I feel like we're all evolving at different rates and at different
Mhm.
levels. And I feel like the lessons I've been learning are like a spiral, right? Like you learn it once when you're a teenager, and you learn it again in your 20s, you learn it again in your 30s. Or like it's not always like linear or whatever, like,
Mhm.
but just like a lesson like this, it's just like I've been here before, but not to this depth. And it's just like it's so, so, so messy. Like it almost feels like a tornado. and then like you have that calm or like that level up after, like after
Hmm.
every storm there is definitely clarity and definitely a rainbow, and like all these new learnings come from it, and like you're able to help other people so much more because you've been in the mess. So like the magic really is in the mess. But
Hmm.
how often do we resist the mess and judge ourselves for the mess?
Oh my
And
God.
yeah, as you were talking about like the squirrel parts and stuff, it reminded me of, I watched the J-Lo special on Prime. It's like 1 hour. It's basically like a music video slash movie, but she has this scene where she meets her inner child, and the inner child is like kind of like telling her like you didn't do this for me, or like, you know, like you need to do this for me, and like how they were like hugging, and I don't know, it was just a beautiful depiction of inner child work. I would
Hmm.
definitely recommend to look that up. I mean, it might be on YouTube, I don't know, but like it was amazing.
So good. And it's so important because I feel like in my experience, when I haven't done that, the little kid part of me starts to run my life. It starts to run my relationships. And then it gets really messy. And then I feel a lot of shame for not being able to quote unquote keep it together. But it's not really about keeping it together. It's how am I going to take care of this little kid part so I don't throw her at a partner because that's
Mm,
not the partner's responsibility.
mm.
So
But
much
that's
learning.
like the leveling up comes in relationships. Like the triggers come out in relationships, in the most
Hmm.
intimate relationships, right? Um, Yeah, because like we do have this part of ourselves as projectors that is a leader, is a guide, you know, knows, has been through the depths of despair. Like I'm a trial and error. Are you a 3-5 too?
I'm a 1-3,
You're
so
a
I'm
1-3. So we have
kind
that
of there.
three, you know, like that trial and error thing. And
Yes.
so we've been through enough to be able to guide people through what we've been through. But that
Hmm.
doesn't mean that we don't feel messy sometimes,
Yeah.
you know? And I often, you know, especially in a new relationship where I'm being vulnerable, it's just like that little kid part does come up. And that little kid part feels very like helpless and very
Hmm.
vulnerable and
Yeah.
very like, I don't know what to do here. Like, give me two options to choose from, because like it's just like,
Yes.
yeah. And so the ability to kind of see above it, and having your, you know, like adult self or higher self talk to the younger parts, like that's what you do in your writing sometimes too, right? Like I've I've done this exercise where on one side of the page I write from one part of myself and then
Yep.
the other side
Yep.
of the page from another part, or even a right hand left hand situation sort of thing.
Hmm.
So I can know the difference between and like kind of have a conversation back and forth. It's so much easier with a guide, I must say.
It is. Hmm. Yep.
And
I,
especially when you're like in trance and you're subconscious, it's just so much easier to navigate all of those parts and colors and symbols and everything, rather than the conscious mind. It just doesn't know how to make sense of it a lot of the time.
that's so true. I have a entirely separate notebook, an entirely separate set of pens and markers for my little kid parts to tell me how they're feeling. If I'm really scrambled and I'm like, I can't hear anything, y'all need to stop screaming. I'm going to give you some paper and pens to play with so then I can start to hear. But yeah, it's me just chilling out here doing it myself, which is fine. But having a guide or having someone there to to support that process usually feels a lot easier.
Mm. Or even like when we record ourselves when we're in the mess talking to each other,
Hmm.
that even too feels like a safe container, or just
Yes.
like a focused, you know, thing
Yes.
where it's kind of like a body double, right? Like it's like if you weren't here listening to me, I would be off on all these tangents in my mind. But
Hmm.
because you're here listening to me, I can then stay focused and try to get to the bottom of this, you know, which is
Yes.
what this one part wants to do, whereas the other parts are just trying to make me not feel pain. So,
Yes.
yeah, it's interesting too when people come for like therapy, the part of them that wants to fix it, they made the appointment. But then all the other
Yes.
parts that are just like, we don't want you to feel pain, we don't want you to go there, they're all just like, hey, let's cancel, let's, let's talk about
Yes.
anything but, let's use the
Oh my
whole
God.
hour to talk about anything but.
Oh my God, trying to navigate those parts is so hard because you still want to show up for your appointment, but also can we not? Because it's
Yeah,
hard.
it's just like, what part of me made that appointment? Like,
Yes,
hello, I'm okay now. Like, I'm not triggered now. Like, let's just stay calm. Yeah.
definitely.
But the
Yes.
issue is like they're gonna pop up in panic or whatever in a public space when it's not
Hmm.
necessarily the greatest. So you might as well deal with it on your own terms when you decide to do it, rather than just have these triggers pop up out of nowhere and embarrass you.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And then I feel it because I've experienced that so many times. There's so much work that goes into having to repair whatever you need to repair with people when you are like triggered, or like when I was triggered, I had to do that. And then also having to deal with the shame spiral of, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. So it's better if we can learn to handle those things before they get to that point.
Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, my mind just like opened up all these tabs. Yeah, like I just want to tell everybody, like we've all been there. We are all still there. We go through the muck too. And
Hmm.
it's all about learning how to I don't know, just have connection with other people
Hmm.
and not be so like fix it or I'm better than you or this is right and this is wrong. It's a more of a
Hmm.
yin yang sort of a like everything's allowed to exist. Like you can only transmute some of these things and learn the lesson of some of these things by going through the shadow part. And like every that's another thing I was that hit home again with doing the human design reading is that every gift has a shadow. Like everything is a spectrum. It has like the
Hmm.
balanced and then the unbalanced on either side. So yeah, it's just like just think about like if life was a movie, if it was everything was just great, 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 great all the time. Like there was no drama, there was no, problem to solve, there was no like anything
Yes,
like that. Like it would be so boring.
you're
So
right.
like what if we just tried to not be resisting all the time and just kind of leaned into the hard things and didn't like judge ourselves or shame ourselves for feeling the feelings or getting
Hmm.
in our feelings and
Hmm.
normalized it and be like, okay, this is what we're doing now. This is a storm. It's like the weather, right? Like we have storms, we have blizzards,
Yeah.
we have like it's life's not sunshine and rainbows all the time. Like
Hmm.
in order to like really enjoy life, you got to see like the magic in the mess. You got to see the miracle in the mundane. You got to like be there for like the little things. So, yeah,
Yes.
there is always magic in the little things and we so often miss it because we're trying to like find happiness, right? But like
Hmm.
you don't have happiness without being able to also embrace the shadow like
Yes.
yeah.
Otherwise, how would you even know? Like, how would you know what happiness
Mhm.
is without the contrast of the more
Mhm.
quote unquote negative emotions? But yeah.
Yeah, and I think within every like happiness piece, there's also the piece of this could be taken away from me, right? So
Hmm.
it's all about being able to like, this was in the human design reading too, and I love it, to be able to sit with desire. Like desire is always going to be there for us. And
Hmm.
like we're lying to ourselves to think that um if we fulfill this desire then we'll be calm or we'll be happy forever or whatever. No, like that's not a thing. Why not just sit with the desire? You don't always have to act on the desire. Like the desire is the
Hmm.
spark within us to, just like why can't we just enjoy having the desire? We don't have to
Yeah.
follow every single desire. You know what I mean? And like there's nothing to say that there's anything wrong with following desire. You can follow desire, but just know that that's not going to be the oh, well, now you're going to be happy forever. It's just like,
Hmm.
okay, so now we're having this great date. So I want this great date to continue for the rest of my life.
Right.
is that a reality? No, it is not. Why don't you just like enjoy the moment instead of trying to
Hmm.
like capture this water and hold it in your hand and just let it flow through? Like there's gonna be more water and it's gonna
Yes,
be fine.
definitely. I feel like that's a whole nother episode on lack and scarcity in relationships. And
Mm.
yeah, because we
Writing
get
that
caught
one
up in
down.
that. Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Hmm.
absolutely. And how to process that, deal with that, notice it when it's coming up, and then what do we need to do to get out of the lack? And just be like, no, abundance mindset when it comes to love and relationships and sexuality. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I am enough, you are enough, there's enough. Like
Yes,
that is the opposite of lack. So
definitely.
yeah,
Yes.
I think that's all I have to say on the subject for now.
Yes, yes, me too. I'm very excited to see what we come up with next week.
I like mulling
So,
it over the week, you know?
same.
Yeah,
I gotta think about it always.
yeah, yeah.
Yes. All right, y'all. Have a wonderful week and we'll see you soon.